Hello, and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, if you have been listening to my podcast for, a little while, you know that I talk a lot about the intuition, the deep inner knowing, that some special little source deep, deep, deep inside you that you just can't shake. Some people call it divine nudges. Some people might even call it psychic abilities. And I dare say it's one and the same. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to simplify that down, like how to actually tap into that deep inner knowing and develop your psychic gifts as a business leader, a business owner, and just an all-around amazing whole human. So my special guest today, her name is MaryAnn DiMarco, and she is the author of Medium Mentor, Believe, Ask, and Act is also another book that she's released. She's an internationally recognized psychic medium, healer, and spiritual teacher. Her work's been featured in countless media outlets, including the New York Times, the Dr. Oz Show, Women's Health, Elle, and Redbook. Now, she learned to meditate at the age of 5 and developed her connection with spirit in her adulthood all the way through. So she's offering validating and positive one-on-one sessions, powerful group readings, workshops, and individual mentorships for developing psychics. I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, MaryAnn DiMarco. Hey, MaryAnn.
Hey, Mary. Thanks for having me.
It's the quorum of the Marys today.
It is.
I love it so much.
Me too.
And, I've been following your work for a little while, and I'm totally impressed. And I loved reading this book. And I think that this is the thing. I believe, and I dare say it sounds like you believe, we all have this innate ability of being psychic. So what are some clues that people could look for either in themselves or maybe just the signs and signals around them in their everyday life that can confirm this?
Hindsight is a wonderful way to recognize your psychic abilities. It's a wonderful way to recognize your intuition. Sadly enough, that is the way. Yeah, because we start off with hindsight where we say to ourselves, I knew I should have taken that job, or I knew I should have said no to that or yes to this. If we can get ahead of our hindsight, we can really master our own psychic and intuitive abilities within ourselves. And I think that's a wonderful start in how to recognize it. Everybody's experienced it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's felt it at some point. And that to me was one of the biggest indicators, just getting into this work of what people were experiencing. They were ignoring that little hunch, that little voice within themselves.
And you know what? For me, I think that's a journey for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. When I started to actually acknowledge that deep inner knowing, I sometimes call it like a divine nudge. It takes time. It's almost like building a muscle, right? It starts with acknowledgement to say, yes, this is a thing and it's real. It's not just my brain making it up or whatever. Where would you say people should begin to at least, accept that this is a thing that they can do?
First and foremost, you have to believe it. Mm-hmm. You have to find that knowing within yourself that says, I have this ability. Not only do I have this ability, but I'm entitled to use it.
Yes.
And I can empower myself by using it. We can even say that the light is within us. This light that we think is supposed to be above us or around us, this source that's so greater than ourselves. And yeah, that's true. But we are part of that source. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, we have full access to that. And so I think that starting out with just believing that you can sets the mindset in its right space. And then the frequency gets to the right area as well, right? We raise our vibration. We've all heard that term. When we lean into that positive thought of the I am and I can, you're off to a great start that way.
So does someone need to be spiritual or to have follow a religious, type Christianity, Buddhism, whatever? Do they need to be a spiritual person to be able to be psychic?
Great question. No. I think that you can respect a higher power in whatever authentic way that looks like for you, whatever resonates with you. I remember reading one person who said, I don't really believe in any of that. And I remember saying to him, but you stand on the cliff as you go hiking and you look at the sunset and you think, wow, Isn't that amazing? So if Mother Earth is your higher power and you're connected to this realm in that way, then lean on that. It doesn't matter. Whatever source provides the peace within yourself, go with that.
I was just having this conversation with a new friend of mine last week, and that's exactly it. Like, I don't really care about labels when it comes to the higher power, God, love, source, universe. It doesn't really matter to me because I don't think there's one true path to, enlightenment or whatever. And I think that that's what's so interesting is when you release sort of the rigidity of what the thing is. I also kind of believe, maybe this is going a little off topic, but my very human brain maybe can't compensate, like can't completely get its head wrapped around something as big and magnificent as this is, and that be okay. What are your thoughts?
I believe it's totally okay. And actually we are in alignment in our spiritual thinking and what we believe higher power is. Yeah. And what it can bring you to is a beautiful investigation and discovery of other cultures, other religious structures and beliefs. And what you get to do then, the honor in all of that, is that you get to draw from all of these various areas and allow yourself to create an authentic spiritual practice that is in alignment with your own soul and your own self. And I think that that's really, really powerful. You can just take what serves you well and incorporate that into your everyday life and into whatever you feel is bigger or greater than yourself. And to your point, it doesn't have to be so vast and so grand. Mm-hmm. We are here learning. And so I'm a firm believer, and it's wonderful to step into the ethereal. And I think we all should to some degree. It's just my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. But to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out is very important to remember to stay grounded in this earthly realm, and the work that we need to do here, not only for ourselves, but for others, comes into play. So it's a happy marriage between both if you choose to take that into your life.
Yeah, because what's the alternative? I mean, the alternative feels a bit bleak. It feels a bit shallow. Like you're just consuming stuff, you're buying stuff, you're eating to gorge yourself, you're going to bed exhausted and you're just gonna die. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's so much more.
I know. And I pray for people who don't see that. There are people who are really experiencing incredible hardship. And so if you are one of those people who are having a hard time coming out of that ditch, if you can just focus on that one pinpoint of light and let that be it. That's it. That's all that you can muster up. That's enough. That's enough, because you are all that. If that can be your practice, and that's your practice, and you are creating the same vibration that anybody with a big, huge spiritual practice is doing. It's all the same.
Yeah. And I think that for a lot of my atheist or agnostic friends out there, and even my new friend who I was talking to about it, he said something along those lines of like, yeah, I used to believe in just logic, like just figuring it out. Like, there's got to be an answer for all things and have it all neatly packaged up. And then, somebody had challenged him at some point and said, well, yeah, how's that going for you?
I've said that myself. We're tangible souls. We want to know. We're curious, right? And it's so, for me, I know just having like a business background as well, you want something to hold on to. Yes. There's an answer there, isn't there?
Right.
There's a right, there's a wrong, there's an answer. I think when you get into this space, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, Mary, is that there's blind faith is exactly that. Mm-hmm. And we are, for all intents and purposes, leaning into a space of the unknown.
Yeah.
And we're trusting that.
Yeah. And it requires a little bit of surrender, I think.
A lot.
Yeah. The subtle word of the day.
Yes. Surrender and then surrender more.
Right. So you talk about like the 10 different ways, things that you can develop to awaken your divine guidance. And, if those that are listening, wherever you are in the world, listening to us right now, maybe the next 30 minutes or so, you could also just barely surrender a little, release the control of knowing all the things, and just go with us on this ride and see where it takes us. So in your book, you talk about how important it is to get the ego in check in order to channel the universe's energy. Talk to me about what that means and why is my ego in the way?
Our ego always gets in the way, doesn't it? Dang that ego. So tricky. So tricky. But when they show up, when the ego shows up, we want to say thank you. We want to lean into a space of gratitude because we are recognizing something within ourselves that is not authentic and that we're able to work with then to get to that authentic space. So I always use ego, fear, things like that as a tool. Yeah. Thank you for showing up. I know it sounds crazy, everybody, but thank it for showing up. And then get to work. Start to see where this originates from. And ego is really not about the bravado of ego. We're talking about the comparison game that we might play with others. We're talking about the pleaser. I want to get it right. I hope this is okay. And when you lean into a space of service through your spirituality, there really isn't any time for that because it's not about us. It is about being the conduit of energy and then giving that energy over to others. Yeah. And when you lean into that space, you pretty much take care of your ego, but it shows up. Make no doubt it will. We just want to acknowledge it, work with it, and know that if we surrender over, everyone who's hopping on board with us today, if you surrender over a little bit, you will be shown the way to get yourself out of that. And not only that, the fun of it is that you learn along the way.
And, I think when you describe it like that, it really does help clarify in my brain. When I am switched off and I'm just in go mode, the little hamster running on the wheel, trying to do all the things, get all my 80 bazillion thousand things on my to-do list done. I'm switched off from so much information. I'm switched off from beauty and awe and like you say, like the signs and the signals that are out there. Is that a part of this as well? The ego going, I'm the one turning the crank and making this world go. And if I don't do all the things, then it doesn't get done. Is that what you're talking about here?
Absolutely. I think that's part of it for sure. For sure. I think we are trained really to be so engrossed in our work as a form of accomplishment, success. So how do you monitor your success? Maybe you change your perception or your perspective as to what that looks like for yourself. And again, if you're on that hamster wheel and that serves you in a way, but at the end of the day, you express gratitude for having the energy to be on the hamster wheel and maybe take a moment to take a deep breath, look outside, enjoy the scenery. If that is what suits you, then you're honoring it. We're not asking you to kind of be outside of your personality, right? Again, we go back to that authenticity. We want it to look like something that works for you. So don't push against it so hard, but maybe add things or change your perspective and help to find that balance within it all.
Because it sounds to me like the shift is really away from your ego driving how you feel, like it's your self-worth, I guess is the best way to put it. Saying like, oh, I've accomplished this, this, and this. I've got these trophies. I've got all the things. And look at me. Look how fancy my life is on Instagram. To something that's a lot deeper, right? A true, authentic self-worth. Tell me more about that.
I love how you say how fancy my life looks on Instagram because social media can really be such a trigger for so many people's egos. You want the social media of your own life to be real personal. What is your real story telling you? Yeah. When you see another story in somebody else that gets that ego going, even in that moment, I express gratitude in being shown a reflection of what I myself may be capable of at some point.
Yes.
And so I celebrate that other person then.
Yes. Instead
of allowing the ego to be triggered. But yeah, to your point, all of that comes into play. And what we have to learn to do is shift the vibration in saying, I see that, I'll give it gratitude. I can feel it within myself. And thank you for all of the accolades. Absolutely. We're not saying don't be, driven, right? That's okay.
Yeah.
We want to achieve different accomplishments in our life and we should celebrate them.
Yes.
And know that we're doing something for the greater good of all concerned.
Yeah.
That the ego isn't just self-serving. I mean, the ego is so self-serving, but the service is something that, yes, makes us feel good, but that we can share with others in a really beautiful way.
Yeah. And I think that's it. So more of my own spiritual beliefs is, if we are one, every single one of us, including every single plant, animal, and living thing in the world, and there's that collective consciousness, you're absolutely right. Like we are a mirror for each other.
Yeah.
But where I think we go so wrong is that the that initial kind of hit when you scroll down your social media and that feeling of like, wanting what they have, feeling you're missing out on this, that, and the other, and that kind of that base level comparison. I think that you're spot on. I think you have to drop so much deeper into that place of gratitude, celebration of them, celebration of you, and celebration of us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and forgiveness. Forgive yourself. We are
Yes.
human. Don't shame yourself out of ego or back into it. Just acknowledge that it's there and that you're human. And part of the human experience is to understand the ego and to work with it. It's not going to go away. It's just going to show itself up in various forms. But if you get really good in your practice and you're consistent with it, just like anything else, we were talking about exercising the muscles, right? When you are within that practice and being very consistent, you recognize it when it shows up a little quicker, right? Sooner rather than later. And you can, sometimes I sort of laugh at myself now when it shows up. I'm like, all right, I see it. I see you there, ego. And then I get right to work with it.
Yeah.
I get right to work with it.
You know, it's funny. I try to think about what life was like, pre-2008, because I think social media really took off then. And I'm sure I did these things back then, maybe going to networking meetings or conferences and you see somebody and you go, oh, I want that. Like that feeling is universal. It's just that social media has really amplified it. And I think you're right. I think it's catching the triggers as soon as they happen or soon enough so that you can acknowledge it and release it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around way before social media, and growing up, remembering who was wearing what.
Yes.
Right? Clicks, societal platforms that existed right in front of your face, not something that was virtual.
Yes.
You really had to deal with it on a visceral level because if you're empathic, we're all kind of highly empathic, then you really feel it, right? You're in there really feeling it. Now, I think we're just being inundated with it. Inundated. Yeah. But my hope, the positive part of that is that I feel like thought processes like we're discussing today is really on the rise.
Yeah. I ground myself by simple things like 10-minute walks around the park in my neighborhood or, just getting my hands in the dirt and doing gardening, those kinds of things that, as you said at the top of the hour, like are really important to really kind of get yourself rooted in the world and remember what the truth is, because I think we can get taken off course.
Doing this work puts you into such a space of remembering why you're here. So for the most part, I mean, I deal with a lot of grief, right? I deal with a lot of loved ones who have passed over and you hear a lot of stories about what people are experiencing in their lives. And when you realize that not only should you be giving gratitude in your own life, and it helps change that perspective again, but that you can then give that light over to others. And like you said, you can serve yourself in beautiful ways by doing cathartic things for yourself. Mine is listening to music, going out for a walk, just like you. I kept my plant. I almost lost my plant, the one plant that I've been able to keep alive.
Yes.
Mary.
Yes.
And I almost lost it because I went away and forgot to tell somebody to water it. And I was like, and I felt it. So sad, right? So we find love in the simplest of things. I think all of that is something that if we can figure out how to pay that forward and just extend that link from ourselves to others and keep that flow going, I think it just creates beautiful balance of lighter and heavier things in the world.
Yeah, 100% agree. So let's shift gears a little. Let's talk about the how. So if everyone is capable of being psychic, of really tapping into this divine guidance that is in all of us, then why is it that we are taught to second guess it?
We're conditioned to second guess it out of fear, right? So our loud mind gets in the way. It wants us to doubt. It wants us to fear. Again, showing up for us in ways probably to protect ourselves. But if you can quiet that mind and learn that the intuition or your guide speaking to you is really that inner voice, like we said, that hindsight, we then can discern the difference. We're just conditioned to be fearful. We are taught it at whatever age. I have met people, though, that maybe never learned that in their life. These risk takers, they just go out and they're like, well, what will be, will be. I'm going to go out and just do it. I love that. If you can't quite get there and you're not one of those people, we just want to learn how to differentiate between the two, your intuitive mind and your loud mind. And I think like I said, we've just been learned it. Things happen in our lives. We understand what fear feels like because it's true.
Yeah.
It is out there. It's real. It's a real thing. So balancing that, understanding the difference between the two is one of the greatest steps you could do for yourself.
Yeah. So let's dive into how. So you talk about there are 6 ways that spirit communicates with us through sensory input. Let's break those down for people.
So if we're talking about the clairs, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about clairaudient, clairvoyance, clairsentience, right? We're talking about tasting, smelling, feeling. All of these things are ways that spirit can come to us. Feeling, a lot of people say when you walk into a room, I feel overwhelmed. I feel people's energy coming at me. It's one of the greatest ways we can experience energy. Sometimes not so great if it gives you a bunch of anxiety. But if it's coming and it's flying at you, if you can recognize that that is simply energy, spirit energy, or energy of others, it's one of the first cues, I think, one of the strongest clairs and sensory ways that we can access spirit. Dreams, clairvoyancy. What are we seeing?
Yeah.
Right? We all dream. What are our dreams trying to tell us? Even if they are a little heavier, we can always determine the lighter message in all of our dreams. Spirit comes to us and visits and things like that. But what are we hearing? That inner knowing. My advice to everybody who's listening is allow spirit to show you the input and try not to control it so much. I remember when I first started doing this work, I really wanted to see spirit. And I realized I had to hear it first. That was just my jam first. And as I exercised each one of these clairs and I got used to all of this sensory input and everything that it was giving me, I realized, they're going to show me as I move along. So lean into it gently. If you want to dive all in, go right ahead. If you feel that's a calling to you, and you can access these ways in these different clairs in many different ways: meditation, writing, like we were talking about, walking, listening to music. These are all ways that you can connect. Listening, asking for signs. Love asking for signs. And all the while believing that it is true.
Yeah.
That you're not making it up, that it is actually happening.
So to recap, those 6 clairs are seeing, flashes in the third eye, visions, auras, colors, symbols, hearing, which is like voices and sounds in the inner ear, or maybe repetitive thoughts that keep coming up over and over. 3, feeling or sensation. So this is really interesting, like changes in temperature or pressure or texture.
Sure.
Like when you get a breeze in a room where there shouldn't be a breeze. That's a bit weird.
Yes.
Maybe take note of that. 4, smelling. So phantom smells such as smoke or flowers, or as you put in the book, death or rot. That's interesting.
Yes, I could tell you about that.
Number 5, tasting. In your mouth, do you taste metal, sourness, sweetness, and spice, or spice? And number 6 is that knowing, a strong sense of what has happened or is going to happen, or an unusually strong opinion.
Yes.
Do you have like one that is more prevalent than others? Like, is that possible? Or could a person be like really attuned with, I don't know, smell versus another?
Depends on how you are utilizing your clairs. Some people, if you're a psychic medium, I use all of them. I didn't start off using all of them. They were kind of revealed to me, and then I understood a little bit more why I was using them. A lot of people that I sit with will say to me, I feel my loved one next to me, clairsentience, and I know that they are there, the inner knowing going hand in hand. If they were a smoker, they might smell the smoke. If they were a baker, they might not only smell the baking. I have tasted the cookies, right? I can taste what they're baking. I might say to somebody, wow, your mom really liked to bake, because I could take the sweetness in there and feel it all. It's really up to you as to what you're willing to let in too. Some people get a little scared. When I was young, I remember smelling illness off of my grandmother when she was passing from cancer. When I started doing this work, that was a boundary for me, Mary. So I said, I don't want to, please don't show me that. But you are capable of it. And as a mother, you might use your intuition in many different ways. If you know your child is sick, you might feel their sickness. You might feel that they're scared of something. Lean into them knowing full well that you are protected. That your loved ones, your guides, angels, whatever it is for you, source, is around you and protecting you, and you want to call on that. So be very careful when you're accessing your clairs that you are saying, I am ready to receive for the divine and greater good of all concerned, and please protect me while I'm in here. I tell my spiritual peeps, I'm like, you get in here and clear this space, make sure it's all good for me to go.
Yeah, and I think I think that is so profound what you just said there. And I want to put a pin on that, because I think when you call it in and also put good boundaries around what it is you do and maybe don't want to see at this season of your life, I think that roots it. Whereas this can seem so crazy and wow, and big and scary and all the things. I have two stories I want to share real quick that I think is really spot on to this. One, my very, very, very dear friend, Matt, who passed away about 15, 20 years ago now, has been with me ever since. And I feel him, in my hardest of moments, and I feel him in my brightest of moments. I feel him like sometimes I feel him sometimes giving me a hug.
I love that.
And so that is like, what a gift.
Yes.
What a gift, because he is somebody who's, was very special in my life on a physical plane and still very special to me in this world. And I don't question it, because I'm like, well, that's Matt. That's just him here, right? And that is good. And then a second story to share real quick is that I was part of a fascinating church in Nottingham, England called Trent Vineyard, part of the Vineyard movement. And they would have spiritual gift courses as well as spiritual gift nights, clairvoyant nights. And it was so fascinating. And if I could just kind of help you visualize what it looked like, it's probably about 10 or 12 people sitting on the edge of a room. The lights are fairly dim. You come in, you have a session, and there are like, say, 6 tables in the middle of the room. And when it's your time, you just come into the room and you sit down at one of the tables by yourself. And one by one, somebody would come up to the table and say, I don't know why, but I have this vision and I'm supposed to tell you this. Or I see this, or have you, maybe look at this scripture. I don't know what this means, but this is when I see you and your spirit showing up here, this is what comes up. Is this what we're talking about, MaryAnn?
Yes, Mary, you're getting me so excited.
Isn't that amazing? That was my church.
First of all, we need to find that church and we need to start one.
Yes. Well, I will link them up in the show notes, Trent Vineyard, because it was beautiful. Every time I did a session like that as a participant, I walked away with a journal full of notes and a journal full of scriptures and a journal full of visions that I really kind of let seep in and integrate over the weeks ahead. It was beautiful.
I'm so obsessed with this. First, feeling your friend, your loved one near you.
Yeah.
And inviting them in and letting them be there in your life is beautiful. The acceptance helps it grow.
Yeah.
Right? You feel them even more. Remember a friend of mine, he took his life, and this was before I was doing this work. And I remember feeling him stand behind me.
Yeah.
I was at the sink, and when you're washing your face at the sink anyway, and you're always like you think maybe someone's standing behind you anyway. It's kind of like that, you're not very much in control moment,
Sure.
The soap's in your eye. I started to feel him really strongly. And I remember laughing because that was kind of his personality. But I remember turning around and I said to him, dude, too close. Like, back off.
Yeah.
And I can hear his laughter within that. I can feel why he was there. And of course, he was showing me how healed he was and how lovely he was. So I honor that. I love that and now I talk to him all the time. That relationship continues. Our 100%. Loved ones would love to continue a relationship with us. And so I honor that you're doing that. I think that's really beautiful. Sitting in a group like that is pretty much what a psychic class feels like. When I first walked into my first psychic class that I ever went to, it was a lot of that. I didn't know what to say. I was kind of like, I can't even believe I'm here, which is usually how people walk in there. But people were like, oh, you're a grandmother. I think this is for you. Or I heard this song and they're telling me to give it over to you. That's exactly what it is like to share this advice psychically and mediumship wise, where you're just not filtering it. You are saying whatever it is that you see, hear, or feel without question.
Yeah.
And you are handing it over and without ego saying, I don't know if this makes any sense to you, but here it is. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And it's pausing that limbic brain that goes, that's crazy, or, oh, that's just whatever, nonsense, woo-woo, crunchy granola, bleh. But having gone through it now 3 times before in that kind of a setting, every single time I got something incredibly profound that helped me really at a crossroads of my life, And so I mean, again, it kind of what we said at the top of the hour, like, how's that old way of working for you? Like, what if there is more information out there that really can give you guidance and direction and or at least maybe validation of a hope or a desire or a path that you wanted to take next, right?
Agreed. And what if you had access to it any time you wanted?
Yes.
That you didn't have to make an appointment with a psychic medium in order to do that. I hope that you do, and I would love to start anybody off, but I want people to know that you can open yourself up, surrender over to it, and without being exaggeration, it's life-changing.
Yeah, it's true. So what is the universal team that you talk about in your book? Define that for me.
Spiritual guides, separate from our loved ones, in that these are guides that maybe walked with us in different past lives that we may have had, part of our soul pack, and they are here, representations of different forms of life, different forms of culture that have walked the earth and are here to guide us for certain aspects of our life. I believe that we also have one true guide that ushers us in and ushers us out at some point, or transitions us over, I should say. And that guide sort of sticks with us. And you can have access to these guides anytime you want. Archangels are another one where you can call on Archangel Michael, Archangel Raphael for different types of things, higher level energies, higher level beings, if we want to get really wooey. When I use all of this in readings because when we have a representation of something culturally, let's say, it lends for interpretation that maybe can help understand why they are there. When I lose the symbolism, it's really just pure light. It's just pure light, but it's a nice tool that Spirit sort of gives us to discern why they're with us.
So let's talk about boundaries then. Like, how do we put good boundaries in play in like a real practical way, like especially when we're tapping into our psychic gifts? And I imagine in the early days when it's just sort of like, whoa, like it may be very scary and overwhelming. Like, talk to me about boundaries.
I had to learn boundaries as a psychic medium, really more about when I'm open and when I'm closed for business, right? When it's okay for Spirit to come to me and when it's not. Very, very clear boundaries. I didn't have that as a kid growing up. And so it was kind of erratic, but again, all part of the lesson. So that was okay. And really it was just strong worded conversations about letting my guides know what works and what doesn't. Here's the deal. They already know what works and what doesn't. They're just waiting for us to state it so that we can learn it. If something does get through on an off hour, then my guides are aware and they're doing it on purpose and I'll pay attention. But for the most part, that was one of the biggest things that I had to learn, was really understand my schedule, not allow myself to be exhausted by overreading the ego. There we go again, right? Oh, I really want, it's very exciting when you first start doing this type of work. Even if it's for yourself, you must honor your downtime. You can work with boundaries when it comes to your service and how you want to give it over. You could tell your guides, sure, I want to do X, Y, and Z in my life as part of service for yourself, for your family, for others, whatever that looks like. And you can say, here's really what I want it to look like. Can you help me find my boundaries in what will serve me best? Right?
And would you need to also set boundaries with your loved ones? Because if somebody says, oh, wow.
Where are my people pleasers? Right. I think I say people pleasers, watch out, the book.
MaryAnn's got some special talents. Can you just give me a quick reading? You know, like, do people do that to you all the time?
Absolutely, all the time.
Oh my gosh. So how do you set safe and conscious boundaries with your friends and loved ones?
I learned very early that it's okay to say no. In a way that is loving and caring. Because here's the deal. I understand what it feels like to really want to connect with a loved one. And I know what grief feels like. I also understand what it feels like to have chaos in my life and really desperately need guidance. So the first thing that I do is operate from a point of empathy, because I just get it. I know, I understand the desperation behind it. And then I just started to really honor my own voice and saying, I'm exhausted. I wish I could, but I'm tapped.
Yeah.
Or I will make time for you when I can.
Yeah.
And it's created beautiful balance. And I have to say, honestly, Mary, so many people are so respectful, and they get it. And I'm just glad to do the work. So it doesn't really rise up all that much, but it was really more about honoring my energy than anything.
100%. And I imagine also writing this book is giving, the keys to the castle to everyone, of just saying like, hey, I'm not some special person on a pedestal here. Like you yourself can also develop these techniques and tools for, awakening your divine guidance, right?
Agreed. Absolutely. It was a pleasure to write this book.
Yeah.
I was so happy to spend a good few years developing workshops and techniques of what really I found resonated most with my students. And then just saying, okay, great. Now I can just give this over in a way that if it helps somebody have the light bulb go off, or they feel like, oh my gosh, there's a community out there for me, or this is what I've been looking for, then Spirit has done their job, and I was happy to help deliver it.
And I imagine, probably during most of the writing of the book, you tell me if it's not true, it probably overflowed out of you. Like when you start writing about something that you're just so aligned with, it's just go, 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 go. It just, you can't write fast enough. You can't type fast enough either.
I channel.
Yeah.
So when I write, I'm channeling. So I worked with a wonderful woman named Shandika who helped me, put it into book form, because it's one thing to be an author. It's another thing entirely to be a writer. And so I need to give my beautiful Shandika her credit where credit is due, because channeling is can be really out there. And when I feel I want to say something, I just put it down on paper because I feel the energy bubbling up in me. So to your point, yes, it overflowed, and she put it into flowing form.
And isn't that beautiful? I mean, we all need people to run alongside us in various aspects of our life, because
absolutely
other people's gifts are not maybe necessarily my gifts. And again, what a beautiful mirror. What a beautiful thing to know that you're not in isolation in this life. You're doing it in community.
Yes.
So I suppose the last thing I want to talk about is balance. I'm a Libra myself. I'm a big proponent of balance.
My husband's a Libra. No wonder why I like you so much.
So how does balance play into all of this? Why is it a large part of integrating divine guidance into our everyday life?
Can we say what balance isn't?
Tell me.
Balance is not everything is perfect. Balance is not everything is calm and lovely. We are spinning plates all the time. And when one of those plates drop, do we have the tools, and are we going to allow ourselves to use the tools to get the plate spinning again? And it's incredibly important, especially if you're giving over to everyone else, to find peace and harmony within your own self. And that is a huge part of balance. The physical body, the mental body, emotional and spiritual bodies, they need your attention before we can give it on over. Like we always say, the oxygen mask, right? The oxygen mask before you put on anybody else. It's a huge component to, I think, clarity and growth. And it's not easy to do. But when it's really not, I want to give everybody permission to know that it's hard. All of this can be hard, but it can really, once you get it going, it can be instinctual.
Yeah.
And that's the cool part.
And I think on a side note to that, because I think it applies, I started to experience true peace and freedom in my own life when I realized in the space-time continuum that love and bliss and ecstasy can happen simultaneously to pain and suffering,
Yes.
And that it's not just a good vibes only kind of thing, and let's just pretend like pain and suffering doesn't exist. I mean, even in our own day and age right now, where there are wars happening across the world, and very hard things for hard people, are happening, and that equally can be beauty and awe and all the things.
Completely agree. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I remember early on in reading, I was reading a mother who lost her child. And there's no greater grief, as far as I'm concerned, a parent losing their child. And she went to laugh, and she covered her mouth. because I think the idea of being in grief and allowing yourself joy at the same time is just a concept that it's very hard to wrap our brain around. And that is a beautiful part of balance, but you have to give yourself permission to experience that and say, it's okay. It's okay to cry at what is on TV, which I have been doing, and seeing that with such sadness and, I don't know about you, but just not feeling like it's feeling helpless, right, in some way. And then counteracting that with prayer and service and light, whatever that looks like for yourself in order to give that over. And then giving gratitude and maybe having some good times with the people around you that you love and having that be okay and learning and giving. And then that beautiful cycle starts to take over.
Yes.
And I think that's just lovely.
So if you're curious about this stuff and you're thinking, man, I want a taste of this as well, I highly recommend check out this book. It's called Medium Mentor, 10 Powerful Techniques to Awaken Divine Guidance for Yourself and for Others. You can find that at your local bookshop around the corner or anywhere online as well. And the book comes out today. So congratulations on that.
Yay. Thank you so much. Happy Pub Day.
I'm so pleased for you, truly. And, just take baby steps into it and just see how profound the world really is. I think it's like the keys to the kingdom. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you, Mary.
So MaryAnn, I have a few questions as we wrap up that I like to ask everyone that comes on the podcast. So here we go.
Okay.
So tell me, who is one person in your network, somebody that you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
That's a tough question for me. I have so many people. Can I give two? Is that okay?
Sure. We'll bend the rules today.
Bend the rule for me just because it's a little hard for me.
Yes.
I have a friend of mine named Melanie Dantzler that I think just has a really beautiful perspective on spiritualism and psychic mediumship and how she utilizes that in her daily life through her own challenges and what she gives over in her life. And I think that she's a great voice, and I just love speaking to her about all this type of stuff.
Love it.
Rebecca Rosen is another psychic medium that I just absolutely love. And the reason why I love Rebecca is she's zero ego in the game. And in a space where you don't expect to find ego, I can promise you it exists. And she's a girl's girl, she's just a woman's woman. And I appreciate that about her. Both of them are actually, Melanie as well. And I think they're both spectacular.
Love it. Well, if you guys are curious about Melanie and Rebecca and what they're doing in the world, they'll be linked up in the show notes as well. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what are you grateful for today?
In this moment?
Yeah.
This conversation. Really beautifully done, Mary.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for your spirit and your time and your thoughtful questions. It's a pleasure to be in the presence of somebody who takes the time to do the work, and I honor that. I very much appreciate it. It's not unnoticed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My heart explodes with love here. Thank you.
It's truth. I speak truth.
Oh, thanks. So again, her website is MaryAnnDiMarco.com. All the links are in the show notes, including her social media handles, so you guys can find her, connect with her directly and her team and all the good work that she's doing out in the world. So my last question for you is this. Someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now, and they are so inspired. They're thinking, you know what? I have had that voice in me more times than not. I have had those hindsight moments where I go, if only I had listened. What's one thing you could whisper into their ear right now just to encourage them in this moment?
You are worthy. You are not making it up. And I understand you. You are not alone. Say yes, surrender, and surrender more. And know that love is all around you while you take these first steps, and always after that.
Big love to you.
Right back at you, lady.
Thank you.